Lesson 9.4, Graphing Sine and Cosine Functions. Our essential question: how do you explore characteristics, stretch and shrink, translate, and reflect graphs of sine and cosine functions? There are two problems left on the page for independent practice. Let's go ahead and take a closer look at those. So we have this problem where a is -2, my b is a 4, I do not have an h, and my k is a -1. Before we graph anything, let's just find all the information first. So first, looking for the amplitude, which is the absolute value of my -2a, which gives me my 2. So that means I'm going to be too high and too low from my midline. Let's go ahead and look at our period, which is 2 pi all over the absolute value of b. So I have 2 pi all over the absolute value of 4, which simplifies all the way down to pi halves. So my period is pi halves. My midline is the equation y equals k. K is a -1, so my midline is at -1, meaning the intercept's moving down 1. I then need to be able to count 2 more down from that, which meant that my y-axis needs to be as high as 3. My h, which is a 0, does the horizontal shift. Since it's a 0, that meant there was no horizontal shift. My k, which is a -1, does the vertical shift, and since it's -1, that meant it's going to be shifting down 1. So that meant that I am right here at -1 is where my midline is going to be. All the intersections are going to be on that blue line. So now let's go ahead and find our 5 key points. And remember, we're finding our 5 key points assuming this is the absolute value of the function we are given. Cosines have 2 intercepts. So let's go ahead and find our 2 intercepts. This is the formula considering the h and k transformations. My b is a 4, my h is a 0. Simplifying this, I get pi 8 -1 as my first intercept. My second intercept, taking into account your h and your k movements, my b is a 4, my h was a 0, and my k is a -1. Simplifying this fraction, I get 3 pi 8 -1. These are my points of intersection. We're not going to graph them yet. Let's go ahead and find the other points. A cosine will always have 2 maxes. So point number 3 is the first max, taking into account our h and our k movement. My h is a 0. We're doing the absolute value. So this is the corner point 0, 1. My fourth point is the second max, taking into account the h and k movements. My b is a 4, my h is a 0. We're considering the absolute value function, and my k is a -1. Simplifying this, I get pi halves 1. My fifth and final point is the 1 minimum, taking into account your h and k movements. B is 4, h is 0, negative, the a we're using is 2, and my k is a -1. Simplifying this, I get pi 4ths -3. Maxes are no longer maxes because this is the reflected problem. These are now my mins. And the only way they become the min is if we steal the y value from the min. So this is actually the coordinate point 0, -3. And this is actually the coordinate point pi halves -3. The min is no longer the min, it is now the max because we are being reflected. How do we turn this into the max? You steal the old max's y value. So this is actually the coordinate point pi 4ths 1. Is our x graphed appropriately? Are we scaled appropriately? We are. So where is pi 8ths? Well, this is pi halves. This would have been pi 4ths. Pi 8ths would have been in here. So let's go through and break all of these up into 8ths so we can see it better. So 1 pi 8ths -1 would have been right here. 1, 2, 3 pi 8ths -1 would have been right here. So I see 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. We've got a lot of intercepts. My first min is at 0, -3. My second min is at pi halves negative 3. My only max is at pi fourths 1. So I see this as my cosine that needs to be repeated everywhere through. So I need a max of 1. I need a min of negative 3. Max 1, min. Max, min, max, min. Oops, I ended up getting off. These were off their line. And there is my cosine function. Our last problem. First, we need to identify our A, our B, our H, and our K. So before we can graph this, we need to find our amplitude, which is the absolute value of A. So it's the absolute value of 1, which is 1. What is my period? My period is 2 pi all over the absolute value of B, which is the absolute value of 1, which simplifies down to 2 pi. My middle line is the formula y equals k, and my k is a negative 1. My h, which is pi, tells me my horizontal shift, so I'll be horizontally shifting to the right pi. And my k, which is a negative 1, always does my vertical, so this is a vertical shift, and because it's negative, that meant we're going down 1. Now we just need to find our 5 key points, and because this is a reflection, you're going to find your 5 key points pretending it's the positive of the function. So this is a cosine function. Cosine functions have 2 intercepts. So let's go ahead and find our 2 intercepts. These are the 2 intercepts, and considering your h and your k movements. For both formulas, my b is 1. The h is pi, and my k is a negative 1. So my first intercept simplifies to 3 pi halves negative 1. And my second intercept simplifies down to 5 pi halves negative 1. So these are my intercepts. Cosine function is supposed to have 2 maxes, so let's find our 2 max. These are the 2 max formulas considering your h and k movements. The A values are coming from the absolute value problem. So my first max is the coordinate point pi 0. My second max is at the coordinate point 3 pi 0. And then last you need to find your min. Our minimum is this formula, taking into account your h and your k movements. B is 1, h is pi, negative of the A we're using is 1. So this simplifies down to 2 pi negative 2. Now these are supposed to be reflected. If they're reflected, that means these are no longer maxes. These are actually your mins now, and they turn into mins because they're going to steal the y value from the min. So this is supposed to be pi negative 2, and this one is supposed to be 3 pi negative 2. My min is no longer my min. My min is actually my max now, and it turns into the max by stealing the y value from the original maxes. So this is actually the max of 2 pi 0. So let's go ahead and graph these. Can I even graph it? My midline tells me go down at negative 1, and from here I need to be able to go up 1 and down 1. I don't have space for down 1. So I need to rescale my y's. So there's me rescaling my y's so that it will fit. My midline is right here now at the negative 1. Now I need to see if my x's will fit. I need to be able to travel full 2 pi after I shift horizontally to the right. So I'm going to shift and start right here. From here I need to travel 2 pi. I almost can, so we're just going to extend this. This is going to be 3 pi right here. So we almost can. It was really close. So my intercepts. 3 pi negative 1, 5 pi negative 1. So here they are. I see it's 1, 2, intercept. So 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. So there's my repeated intercepts. My max is at pi negative 2, because it's now a min. My other max was at 3 pi negative 2, because now it's a min. My actual max is at 2 pi 0. So here is my repeated cosine that I need to continue all the way through to repeat. So up to 0, down to -2, up to 0. So here is my cosine function.